Yoel Romero, the soldier of God, is no longer with the UFC. That's right. I know. It's
Macaulay Culkin's, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it really is. I mean, according to Dana White, he lost 4 of his last 5. He's 43 years old. Doesn't really have a future with the promotion, and he's just one of many cuts that are going to be coming to the UFC, I guess. Drake, what was your initial reaction when you heard that Yoel was gone?
Well, I just gave it to you. I got the Home Alone face. Oh my God, no. No. I didn't do that. I was surprised. I was definitely surprised by it, despite the facts that Dana has presented to us after, the matter of the release and everything. Is 43 years old, has only won 1 in his last 5 there, which is kind of crazy to think about, just hearing that and everything, because you think about the fights and, of course, the Whitaker fights were awesome. The Costa fight was awesome. And then the Adesanya fight was not very awesome, but it was against Adesanya and everything. Shouldn't happen, all that stuff. So I mean, still a top guy, very obviously. So yeah, it was a surprise from that standpoint, especially because we've seen fighters stick around who are far lower on the totem pole and have put in not as good of worse performances than Romero has, despite losing these ones. So yeah, initially very shocking to see, but not something that upsets me really. And, we can get into that as we go on here and why. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody predicted that. That was Friday. But at the same time, it's a little bit telling as to where things will be going. But yeah, what was your initial reaction, Pat?
Yeah, no, mine was actually one of pretty big shock, just because you look at those losses, right? And first Whitaker fight was clear but close. Second Whitaker fight, a lot of people had him winning. Costa fight, a lot of people had him winning. Adesanya fight was a little bit close. I mean, it was terrible bout, but but again, it was kind of up there in terms of close. Still,
I actually
it wasn't a
did
blowout.
score it for him.
Yeah, I scored it for him. I scored it for him.
We're gonna let's put it out there.
Right? Yeah. No. I had it for him too. Although, yeah, neither of them deserved to win that fight. The fans lost that fight, yeah. But yeah, like it's one of those things where this is a huge revealing hand of what the UFC is planning to do with these cuts coming up. And as I previously mentioned, I'm going to do a Fight Business podcast this week that's dedicated all to it, to really break down why these cuts are coming and which fighters are likely to get cut, things like that. Huge breakdown about it. But it was a bit of a shock just because this really lets you know what's coming. And I think a lot of people are going to be shocked by who's going to get released, I would guess.
Yeah, no denying that. I mean, we've already talked about it a little bit, in our backstage chat, we can call it, for the body lock, and names that you could maybe predict that shouldn't be released. I mean, okay, first of all, before I get to somebody who we'd have talked about, but we have already saw with Jussier Formiga, guys like that, right? Top guys who, maybe on a little bit of a losing skid, but are still clearly top guys. So like Romero, and we mentioned that maybe somebody like a Rafael Assunção could be in danger now, who perennial elite bantamweight, who one of the most underrated fighters of all time, we're being totally serious, but has never been super duper exciting, super technical and very, it's intriguing to watch him from a more trained eye, I guess you could put it that way, more respectable to the hardcore fans and everything, but doesn't necessarily get those casual reactions and fight memorably for them to be like, oh yeah, Assunção's coming back. And especially with the couple losses recently, Sandhagen and Garbrandt. I don't know if those were back to back. I can't remember off the top of my head here, but those were very recent, of course. So, people in the top 10 that are kind of similar to him, I think is something we can expect. And it first started off, unless I'm forgetting somebody, but, with Formiga is kind of the guy who we're starting to see, that it will come this way. And I think that maybe the thing with Romero, his age doesn't help him, but at the same time, we've seen that age doesn't matter for him. And the other thing is that the guy, along with his management, they are very adamant on him continually sticking around and potentially like demanding title shots, which at this point, buddy, you gotta work your way back to this. We already gave you one that you shouldn't have got. Like he got gifted this last one and then put on not a great showing in terms of entertainment, despite us thinking he should have won. But yeah, he's had so many opportunities now. And, the one fight that he did win against Luke Rockhold, interim title fight that he missed weight for, it's like you cannot keep demanding these things after not performing, the right way or making weight, whatever it is. So if he's going to stick to his guns from there, from a business standpoint, like, all right, man, well, sorry, we're not going to do that. It doesn't make sense anymore. We've been down this road. So we're not going to pay you all this money and keep giving you these opportunities when you're not, racking up the wins like you used to, despite still being good. It's just how it goes. So it's kind of a unique case with him, I think, but definitely along the lines of fighters we will, could see coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say his case most closely mirrors that of Anderson Silva. In the sense of Silva was a little bit more shot, right? But that's not to say Silva couldn't have competed in the lower top 15, maybe top 25. Again, you look at the Hall fight, he looked fine until he didn't, right? I mean, and he's older. He's taken much more damage. Well, actually, honestly, I don't know that he's taken more damage than Romero when you think about it. But he hasn't. Silva's clearly fallen off a little bit. He's older. He's not going to be this guy that's going to make a title shot. He's going to consistently be on the outside, and they're going to pay him a ton of money. And that's exactly what Romero would be. Malki Kawa mentioned to our own Michael Fidel that, Romero had floated moving up to 205. I think that move was just a little too late. I think if he had done that a little bit sooner, then maybe he's got a good run in him at 205 and they're not going to do anything. But now that Adesanya's talking about going up to 205, if he wins the belt there, what are you going to do with him? And even if he moved up, as Dana did mention, age will eventually catch up to you. He's 43. He's about to turn 44 in April. If he hits that plateau and falls off after he's just won the belt, that doesn't look great. And I feel for him in a lot of ways. A lot of people, like you said, got a title shot he didn't deserve. I agree with that. But at the same time, he also got snubbed out of what was probably his best title contention shot against Michael Bisping. That will forever, haunt me in terms of you stole that man's real, closest thing to a belt that there ever was, so that Dan Henderson could get a shot. It's a whole story, but yeah, it's one of those things where we've also seen the PFL and Bellator, come out and say, we don't want Romero. Not, it's same with Silva. Part of that is because of the age, is because if he goes over there and he cleans anyone's clock at 205 or 185, gets the belt, right? Let's say he goes over to 185. Let's say he beats Mousasi, takes the belt Bellator. And then he retires a year later. That's not great for anybody. So with the money he's asking for, the fact he's trying to go for title shots, I think he's kind of in a really tough position right now.
Yeah. And, that was disappointing because that's where I was going in terms of my reaction to things initially. Very shocked, but then I got very excited because I was like, man, you think about it, the possibilities for who he can fight outside of the UFC is actually really, I think there's a lot of good options there, considering he's fought practically, everybody in the UFC middleweight division, that's worth a damn for the most part these days. And so it's like, and especially with losing all these title shots, it's like, well, I mean, if he is to beat people, it's just to beat him, kind of, unless he goes up to light heavyweight. So I really like the freshness idea of, him going to Bellator or something, but I get why maybe they wouldn't want to, invest in him at this stage, like you just said. So yeah, it puts him in a weird spot because of his age, but still knowing that he's definitely, I don't think, as close to done as Silva is. I think that it's in terms of that comparison, he's got plenty more to show, at least from what we've seen. Maybe whoever he fights next, whenever he fights next, he'll look significantly worse. I don't think we can judge him too much off of that Adesanya fight, is kind of stylistically how it played out, I think. And Yeah, I mean, and if you want to bring up, since we mentioned the ones that have shut him down in Bellator and PFL, um, earlier today, the BKFC said they were interested. To mention them, they're not shutting the door on Romero, which I why wouldn't he go where the money is? I guess so we'll see what happens there. But that's not what I would like to see. I would love to see him against like Muhammad Khalidov and KSW or something. I think that would be fantastic. They didn't seem to oppose the Silva yet either, from what I've seen, but I don't know too much on that side. So, in terms of options for Romero, Pat, how do you feel about things?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, BKFC, sure. Let's do let's do Hector Lombard versus Yoel.
Oh my God,
that's totally a possibility. I like that. I like KSW a lot. I'm not sure they'll have the financial pull to bring him in, right? Because that's the big thing is you've got to find a promotion willing to pay that money for the short burst of brand recognition that he's going to give them. KSW has kind of built their own divisions and has made a name for themselves off of their own fighters. I don't necessarily see them turning him down right away, but I think if they went to the negotiation table, they don't necessarily need to pay him a ton of money to have him come in. I think their brand is a little bit more homegrown, I guess, in terms of the fighters that they tend to produce. So I like it. I just don't know if it'll happen. I'd love to see him in Japan. I don't know that, RIZIN would be the place. I know you've been annoyed about people saying he's going to RIZIN. I think that possibly he goes on to do something like Mega or, whatever's out there. It's similar to what Sakamura was saying with Silva, right? Like, we're not necessarily going to have him come over to RIZIN, but we'll help set him up. I'd love to see Romero go over there and just have some crazy, soccer kicks allowed style
that rule
fights.
set with him, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. So that personally, for me, would be my favorite. But I like KSW a lot. I like BKFC a lot. Lombard versus Romero and BKFC would be
just the thickness in that ring.
Yeah. Oh man.
Both stocky Cubans, right?
Yeah.
His throw and power. But yes, thank you for setting me up there on the RIZIN discussion because, yeah, I mean, in terms of options, that would be very fun and exciting. Khalidov is probably top of my list, but I mean, Romero versus anybody with that rule set, amazing. So that also would include one championship, even though they don't allow the soccer kicks anymore, I don't think. I think they still have knees on the ground, but they also do use the global scoring, which is, not round by round and all that good stuff. I mean, hey, why not Romero versus Minnow Man? I mean, that's a bit backwards in terms of what Minnow Man normally does, but hey, so that's just something I had to say. I had to say that.
Oh,
but
man, I need that fight.
Before, I don't have any intel necessarily on Romero in, if he's talking with RIZIN or anything like that at this exact moment. But I will say, to start things off, as a reason why that is probably pretty unlikely is something that Pat and I did touch on during the RIZIN 26 fight announcements show. If you missed that, also on the channel, you can check it out. Is, we were talking about the heavier weight classes in RIZIN. So, like, for example, Romero, a middleweight, maybe he could fight a light heavyweight going forward. These are the divisions that really, at the moment, RIZIN doesn't have whatsoever. I mean, normally, they don't really even have a middleweight division, but typically do have a light heavyweight division, which doesn't consist of any Japanese fighters. And at the moment, we're in this time with COVID-19 where everything's pretty much been exclusively domestic for RIZIN because it's quite a hassle and risk to just have people come in and just not really worth it, right? So especially these guys like a Silva, like a Romero, who are asking for a lot to come over. So it's like even less likely because of what they're asking for on top of the worldwide situation. In 2021, maybe things will get a little bit, hopefully things will get better and loosen up, right? Just because things will clear up, right? Hopefully that's the case. But in terms of procedures and stuff, maybe that is kind of what I'm getting at too. So if you look at that, because it's the same situation with Silva and why him and RIZIN it wasn't going to happen, right? Not going to happen. even if the interest was there. So because you have to find an opponent who would have to be Japanese in best case scenario. Then if it's not, then you have to bring in two people who are from the outside and just double that risk possibility there. So it's in the same boat with Romero where you would presumably need to bring in two different people, worry about the same thing. And yeah, it's just a big, it's not worth the risk essentially is what I'm getting at here for everything that goes into these type of fighters. As fun as it would be, just not very likely, especially now. You know, maybe if things were normal, much higher chance, of course, because then they could work around things. So,
yeah, no, and we'll see where he ends up. We'll see. You know, Kawa has mentioned that Romero may end up doing boxing. I could see him doing that. Again, we've talked about bare knuckle boxing, but I could see him also stepping into a regular boxing ring. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Excited to see him with some fresh matchups if that comes to fruition. But again, a little sad to see one of, you know, arguably one of the greatest fighters to never win a belt in the UFC end up leaving, especially unceremoniously when they're trying to get him more fights. He's not retiring. And unfortunately, a sign of things to come, as we discussed. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button. Tell us where you want to see Yoel Romero fight next. Give us some possible opponents, dream matchups. Do you want to see him move up to, let's say, heavyweight and go to PFL? Maybe they change their mind. Would you
Romero Verdum?
There you go, Romero Verdum. Man, like 4 years ago, that would have been a really awesome fight. Yeah, or would you, you know, in a dream scenario, love to see him against Mousasi, even though, again, Bellator's kind of nixed that. You know, let us know where you want to see him go. Minowa Man is clearly my ideal matchup. That's where I want to see Romero next. That or an open weight tournament where he fights Baruto, Bob Sapp, you know, all the classics. Yeah, that would be incredible. But yeah, let us know. Drake, any thoughts to close on this?
No, I think we're pretty good. Like and subscribe though. Just remind you, give us a follow, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, okay, I guess you did mention Mega, and you know, just to touch on that because of the Floyd nonsense, real quick. That throws a big wrench into things. That's all I will say. So things are very up in the air now with the possibility of that. And yeah, I mean, I guess that is it. Let's say that goes through. That could definitely be a possibility. And, you know, since Silva's a possibility for that too, maybe Silva versus Romero. Maybe that's secretly more of a realistic thing than you guys want to think about or know about, just because there's not a lot of detail about it. And there still isn't much, despite what I'm saying right now. But yeah, this Floyd Logan Paul thing is problematic for that event, whatever it's supposed to be. So I'll leave it with that.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's fair. And yeah, Silva versus Romero. Yeah, sanctioned murder with soccer kicks. Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Hey, maybe it could even be a kickboxing match. Maybe Silva wouldn't even want to bother. You know, like that's what we're getting with the possibilities with Mega 2021.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Let us know. Let us know what you think.